Welcome back to G2E. We are here with Elliott Rapaport, the founder and CEO of Birches Health. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me, Hillary. Really excited to chat.
Yes, for sure. So you're coming in from a little bit of a different angle here. You're not a regular attendee. You're like a cool attendee.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Can you tell us, like, the Reader's Digest version, what is Birches Health?
So I'm the founder and CEO of a virtual problem gambling treatment provider. We operate the US's largest national network of gambling addiction specialized clinicians, all covered by insurance funding, and then funding actually from state departments of health and state gamings. And I started the company now about 2.5 years ago, and we've been very fortunate to grow quite quickly.
Yeah. So I know that you had some exciting new developments recently.
Yes, definitely. So we recently announced a new funding round. We announced $20 million, which we recently closed, and it was funded by General Catalyst, Alicorp, and then Will Ventures, and they're our central backers.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Very exciting. I love seeing that support for something that's a big need in the industry. So.
Completely. And
yeah.
A lot of that money, of course, will be used to expand the clinical network and really to continue to integrate with insurance companies and then also with state departments of health. And so the focus here, of course, of the business as a whole is really on making sure that people who do need care can get access to it quickly, confidentially, and securely.
So how do you pair that with operators here?
It's a great question. And so, I think on the face of it, people might think that incentives aren't aligned. But what we've really found over the past 2.5 years is that the most innovative operators really are going out of their way to prioritize player protection and making sure that resources and really access to treatment like ours are easily available. So we currently work with over 75 stakeholders in the industry, and we partner directly with leagues, with teams, with operators, and with state governments to make sure that help can only ever be one click away.
Where are we at right now when it comes to responsible gaming? How far have we come? Are we still making great strides? Have we stalled out at all?
Yeah.
What's kind of the state of the industry right now?
So it's a really good question, and I think in the past 2 years, the industry as a whole has moved from very reactive to now much more proactive, which is very exciting to see. I think a lot of it, frankly, is due to the technology and the technological innovation which has occurred. Historically, I think if you were looking for gambling addiction care, it was exceedingly difficult to find. There were just not enough providers, and then if you did manage to find a provider, they often wouldn't take your insurance, and so care would really be prohibitively expensive. You could be asking someone who might be struggling financially, who might be in crisis, to pay hundreds of dollars out of pocket per session. We've actually solved, fast forwarding to today, a lot of those issues. On the supply side at Birches Health, we've really built the machine now to train providers across the US. So we currently work with over 250 providers, and that'll triple by the end of next year, which we're very excited about. We're continuing to invest in that team and continuing to focus on that clinical side.
Oh, wow.
As well, though, historically, you were not able to have insurance companies actually reimburse for gambling addiction treatment. Today, hundreds of companies actually reimburse, so people can get their care covered, and financial barriers have been removed. By no means is it perfect, but it's a pretty radically different landscape, and frankly, it's a much better landscape, I believe, than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of big strides have been made. So what's something that you just wish the industry understood? Or, what's kind of like your soapbox? The hill that you would die on?
I only get one. I was about to say we can extend the interview.
We got time.
No. I really think that responsible gaming in the industry, it needs to be embedded more in the player experience. Why is RG a separate page? Why is it a separate module? Why is it, for an online operator UL/responsible gaming? I would really like to see responsible gaming prioritized, especially by, in particular, I think, as well as land-based companies, a lot of the online operators who have such world-class UX teams and product design teams. Like, let's prioritize responsible gaming. Let's have some of those resources focused on those, on those sections, such that RG is in every aspect, from onboarding to detection, even to intervention, should it be needed, of a player's day-to-day.
And would this be something, I mean, if they were to incorporate that the player would set up? Because you look at like London, there are some places in the UK that have gotten very, very strict on the regulations around it, where, it's obviously controlled by the government. Here, for those added protections that are needed more on a case-by-case basis, depending on your spending limit, depending on, where you feel like you need to stop.
Sure.
Is that something that the player can adjust ahead of time to what they need? Or is this something that you think that the provider should decide, here are the parameters?
So it's an interesting question, and I'll answer it, I think, mainly from the treatment perspective, from the clinical perspective, talking about the provider side, which really is where we live. Our clinical leadership team really has, over now about 8 decades of experience, really building out these gambling disorder, which is the clinical diagnosis of gambling addiction, these gambling disorder treatment programs across the U.S. for actually many of the state governments and the very large insurance companies. And so as a result of that, their clinical focus is on making sure that individuals who may have had their crisis moment, who may desperately need clinical intervention, can get access to that care. And then coming out of it, after a first assessment, after a diagnostic evaluation, with really a wraparound and customized treatment program. Problem gambling treatment, gambling disorder treatment, it's not one size fits all. And I think it's a really interesting comp when you also think about how RG exists within the industry today. RG in many ways is one size fits all. And so a lot of the focus and a lot of the work we're now doing with some of the most innovative, again, leagues, operators, and teams in the industry is really on focusing how player protection, how RG could be more personalized, because that's what the American consumer expects today.
Are you also working with a lot of the payment providers as well to set up possible,
thus far, no, though we do happen to have a couple of discussions, which we've been having yesterday and today while the team is here. I think the financial aspect is a really interesting one. And I think that a lot of the guardrails, perhaps, that need to be put in place by players themselves, deposit limits, standard withdrawals, things like that, those actually, as well as, of course, working with us, Birches Health, working with operator partners, those can actually be done through working with the payment processors. So we have yet to really explore that vertical, but I'm really excited about the conversations we've been having over the past 24 hours because I think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, I would agree. I've been talking to a couple payment providers about responsible gaming, and they are very passionate about it.
It's, I think, a really good segue into kind of, something that being a G2E reminds me every year, which is that in many ways we're all in this together. Everyone's presence in, this massive expo hall, which we're sitting in, people realize that we're all here to protect the players. We're all here. No one wants a player to have a crisis. And so as a result of that, a lot of the focus needs to be on kind of cross-functional cooperation to make sure that no one ever ends up actually being escalated into needing treatment. Yeah. No one ever needs, hopefully, Birches Health, but today they do.
Yeah. Well, we're really glad that you have the resource and you put it out there. It sounds like you guys are doing incredible things. So
thanks so much.
Congratulations on closing that round of funding.
Thank you.
That's a huge feat. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your show.
Thanks so much for the time. Really nice to chat, Hillary.